It's Wednesday, January 15, 2025, 7:28 in the morning. Good morning. I just finished Leah McSweeney's Chaos Theory. It's a memoir, we can say, even though, she's young. So what? I don't think she felt like she can be brave enough to say that, because she did mention something of the sorts in the book somewhere. This book was supposed to be a breather for me. You know when you smell perfumes at a store and you like testing them, then you go and smell coffee beans, and then you go back to perfumes to give your palate a break. This was supposed to be a palate cleanser for me after finishing the book that we talked about previously, which was Without Conscience by a doctor. It was a psychopathy book. So I wanted something light. So I decided to go to a Bravoleb, as in Bravo Celebrity, which Leah McSweeney is. She's a former Real Housewife of New York City. The younger blonde girl, if you remember. I'm not sure she was on for 2 or 3 seasons. Or more, but not that many. It's been a minute, I do feel like, because I think there was a year or so when we didn't have Real Housewives of New York at all, and then they brought in the all-new cast, which is now airing season 2, almost the end of that season 2, TOO of season 2. Listen, if I sound like, I'm just like all over the place, I am, but I'm getting ready to get out of bed. And I don't want to wake up feeling as blah as I do. So I thought, let's just go over a few things. And as I was doing so, I came to, we finished the book in the middle of the night. So let's talk about that. I'm just hoping that, by the time this is over, my mood will have shifted. My period is due on the 17th, really. But lately, it's been starting a day early. I tracked like the last 3 months. So if I'm lucky, it'll start tomorrow. If I'm even luckier, it'll start today. And then my mood will change completely. So if nothing else, we have 24 hours before we feel better. That was a fun fact, wasn't it? Just explaining, the low vibrationness. But I'm going to do this because, like I just explained. The book ended up not being a lighthearted, fluffy book. It ended up being about mental health. It wasn't heavy, but it was about mental health, literally from jump. She was on drugs as a teenager in her early teens. Listen, she has lived a very hectic life. I'm like, wow, have I lived at all? At my big age, I'm quadruple what age she was then, which means I'm about 60 years old. She not just doubled, she was like heavy into the clubbing scene, drugs, alcohol, got fired from school. I think initially it was mental health that was not diagnosed. Mental illness that was not diagnosed, which was later diagnosed as bipolar, which, as if you follow the story, it makes sense that is the diagnosis. The thing about mental illnesses is that, in my humble opinion, they do tend to mimic each other. I can understand why they sometimes can be misdiagnosed, confusing one for another, because they're so similar to me from my standpoint of just being a spectator in the world of diagnoses, etc. She said something that touched me about when she was a teenager and she was expelled from a school, and it changed the trajectory of her life in that they moved from New York City, where she was born and raised, to Connecticut, a very suburban area, and it just messed her up completely mentally. Not that she was doing excellent even in New York, but she said she wonders if the principal or whoever fired her, must have been the principal, and it's not firing, knows how much that impacted her life. It made me feel like when she was writing this book all those years later, she still has feelings about it. You just never know how you're going to impact somebody. Like I said and I think I did mention it in the previous book about psychopathy, the thing that happened to me all those years ago, more than 10 years, it kind of framed my mind because of how it still comes up so fresh. And I hate that for me. You just never know what will lead you where and how. Of course, you go to therapy, you take medication, you do yoga, you walk, you talk to a device, you this, that, and the other. I get it. There's tools and there's this and there's whatever. I understand that. But does it change the bottom line of it impacted you and made you see the world differently? No. But also, when things like this happen to you, not when I say like this, I mean things happen, whatever this is for you, the thing that did happen to you. When these things do happen to you, they say they happen for you. Like, another angle to look at it from is that something worse could have happened in the future, but now because you're wiser and you have experience to fall back on, and you have that in your subconscious mind, you won't allow yourself to go through that again. Not in so many words. It's the kind of thing my mom would say. She would say, "Usinti so enduin." That's tosa, meaning you're being saved from something. Like if you're going to work and then you end up with car issues or whatever, I don't want to be too dark, and you end up not making it or getting there late or whatever, she would say something worse was probably down the road. And it's better that you experienced this, which stopped you from that one. You know what I'm saying? Apparently, Leah was an unruly kid. I mean, we've covered this already. Her family was okay. They weren't wealthy, but they were doing okay. And she struggled with school and whatever. And instead of going to Europe to college, etc., like all the other rich kids that she was around growing up, she pursued street fashion. She has her fashion line called Married to the Mob, Married to the Mob, MTTB. I believe there's a photo of Rihanna wearing one of her T-shirts, and Rihanna is a big fan of Housewives. They will always quote her saying something, or they'll say she DM'd them, etc. So it's cute because it's Rihanna. If it were a regular person like myself, it's funny because I'm not regular. I'm a regular person. But let's say someone like me who's not regular, if I were taking photos in their fashions and DMing all of them and whatever, they may block me. They may say I'm a stalker. But because it's Rihanna, what is it? Is it fame? Is it talent? Which, that's all relative, the talent part. Or is it money? You get what I'm saying? It's influence is what it is. She has more influence, but my question is, does she have more influence because of A, B, or C? Or is it D? All of the above. At some point, she fell in love, Leah, early 20s, maybe even 20, and had a stable relationship and thus a stable life, or subsequently a stable life. And she had a kid at 24 who we know of on the show. We also know of her baby daddy, Rob. I was surprised as I was listening to the book, which I love that she reads it herself, that I remembered so much about her and her life because I was very interested in her story. And she just brought like a fresh perspective. All the other ladies were older, which I love that too. I mean, and listen, New York City is one of the better franchises of this show, Real Housewives, even though for whatever reason they got rid of all of them. She's like, wait, what? People's minds are still boggled around that. Rob, we know of him on the show too. Cool guy. People are like, wait, why are they not still dating, etc. Rob's the baby daddy. And he had a fashion line. I forgot the name of it. A something something. He had maybe a sneakers line. There's a connection there with Nike too. And also even Leah designed at least one pair of sneakers, collaborated with Nike at some point too. I was like, wow, well, good for her. It's nice to hear these things about a single individual, not a big company, just like a person. It's always fun and refreshing to hear that. Just a regular person can go that far, especially now that you know more of a backstory, that it wasn't paved with this, that, and the other. She got sober and was, like I said, for about 9 years. But here's what's interesting to me. Before she got on the show, Real Housewives of New York, got sober, right? And decided to have a sip here and there. She explains all of that in the movie. Might as well be a movie in the book. So now we know she's not completely sober, right? Not even California sober. California sober is when you stop drinking, but you smoke weed. It wasn't even that. She had started drinking again a little bit here and there, as she says. And then she got on the show via Bethany Frankel's makeup artist or hairstylist, whatever. It was mentioned at the show it was mentioned somewhere that Bethany was how she ended up. We're like, wait, what's the connection? I mean, granted, all of them are from New York and they're like in the business realm, etc., etc. When you watch these reality shows, it's so fascinating to me all the time how it's such a small world. All these people know each other. It's like, of all the people in the world, all of you people know each other? There's only 8 billion people. So she starts drinking again, right, a little bit. And then she ends up on the show. But the show makes it look as if on the show, it appears as if she was completely sober and started drinking during filming, even if it was on episode 1. But that's what at least I remember it looking like on the show. Now, cut to, okay, and then she becomes completely off the wagon on the show, just like running around naked. I'm like, what is this girl doing? Is this all for show? What is this? Then she's no longer on the show now. None of them are in that crew, like I mentioned. And then the Me Too movement and everybody's suing everybody for everything. Leah currently has an open lawsuit against Bravo, Evolution, or Shed Media, all the production people, Andy Cohen, etc., etc. It's about, amongst other things, that they made her drink again. Kinda, if I can put it in my own words. But it's around her alcoholism and the toxicity of them making her drink again or encouraging that. Which I'm like, wait. Okay. And another thing is, she mentions in the book, that between her drinking and her bipolar diagnosis, etc., somebody said something, I think Ramona, about that, and she didn't love that. She was like, why are you talking about my mental illness, and why are you, why don't you talk to me about these things? You're talking about this is not something that you should be talking about, and you're doing so behind my back, etc. And Leah says that she feels like some of the ladies maybe didn't want her on the show, and they tried to get rid of her, and they were throwing her under the bus in a sense of they reported to the higher-ups that she is struggling with addiction. This is all in the book. And then she says she can't tell whether it was out of concern, but she thinks that it was them trying to get rid of her. And she loves that Bravo was so respectful of this and took it seriously and referred her to, I think, a psychologist and whatever. It's always so interesting to me because now you're suing them for the toxicity, but in the book you made them look nice and said that they cared. So which is which, right? What I find interesting about that is I will use interchangeably listened to and read when I talk about a book. So a lot of the time I probably mean that I listened to the audio. I read Lala Kent's book. I think it's Give Them Lala. Everything of hers is Give Them Lala. Lala Kent is from Vanderpump Rules and apparently going to be on The Valley, but that's neither here nor there. In her book, without going too deeply into that, she talks so highly of her current fiance as per the time of writing the book. My man, oh my gosh, did this, bought a brand new car for my parents, did this, that, and the other. I'm not saying somebody who buys a brand new car for anybody becomes a good person for doing it. I'm saying that's what was in the book. By the time the book was out, I think by the time she was promoting the book, or just afterwards, she already hated him. They broke up, and he's the worst person. He's a narcissist. He's toxic. He's this. I'm not saying no anybody's lying or these two things cannot coexist. I'm just saying it's always interesting to me, right? It's tough because now it's memorialized in the book, unless you're going to go back and do another edition of the book, or I don't know. So that happened with Leah McSweeney and is still happening with the lawsuit. There's been a lot of lawsuits towards or against Bravo, Shed Media, and all the other media, 32 Flavors and whatever. These are all production companies that work with Bravo, that do the actual production of the shows that end up on Bravo. And a lot of them, they, end up being dismissed. I know Brandy Glanville, if you watched Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I think she was on 5 seasons or something, one of my faves. She currently has her own podcast. She has 2 books out that I may or may not have read, both. And she had a lawsuit, or maybe still does. It's a lot going on out here, dude. So Leah McSweeney ends up having her own business that is doing well enough that I believe that is her core job. And the business may have been around for almost 20 years at this point. Of course, she says it's not without its ups and downs, etc. But that's her thing. It's Leah Mob, I believe, is even her social media handle. I enjoyed the book tremendously. I'm so impressed with the writing, at least the storytelling, because immediately it's like interesting right away. And chapter after chapter. Did I skip half a chapter at some point? Not half a chapter. That was like 30 minutes long and probably skipped like 15 minutes. The business chapter, I was like, I'm good on this one. Because I listened enough and I was like, okay, all right, girl. And I skipped that. which I don't normally do, but I just couldn't. I listened to this book at 1.75 the speed because that's how I be. If you're interested in this book, which I highly recommend, because it's just so it's not heavy, like I said, and it's really, really good. And if you're a fan of Housewives, I'm surprised because I all along was like, I don't know. It's like Erica Jane's book. The two of their books, the two of them, they're like blonde and whatever. Both of them, I was like, I don't know, but their books, not because they're blonde, but it just so happens. The covers of each of their books remind me of each other. I've been like, I feel like, what is she going to say that I'm going to want to hear? But I really enjoyed it more than a lot of books that I've listened to. I listened to a lot of memoirs. I enjoyed this one a lot. I'm happy it surprised me the way that it did. I haven't listened to Erica's or read it yet. Hopefully it's going to impress me too. Even if it doesn't, sometimes you just want something to kill time with and take your mind off of it. I'm going to put the Amazon affiliate link or referral link in the description box here of the podcast. If you want to buy this book or another book or whatever, and in ways of trying to support this show, not the Housewives, please use that link and buy via it, and we'll get a kickback. I don't know what the cut is, but apparently that's how it goes. Wow, this is the longest I've talked on a book. It just goes to show. Babbling Brook podcast is our Facebook group if you'd like to join us, and please do. Babbling Brook podcast on Instagram. Please follow us there too. I'd like to hear your opinions on any and everything, so please leave us comments. You can do so on Spotify, I believe, and I know you can do so. Well, I know you can do it on Spotify and on YouTube too, which that's where the podcast is available, and on other platforms. You know this because you're listening to it, so otherwise how would you know about where to find it? But where you can leave comments, I believe it's only those two platforms for now, but who knows? And, follow us, download our episodes, give us ratings, do all the things, give us some love. I need a hug, guys. Let me get up. I have the most important thing coming up in 2 days. The countdown is on. I think I'm ready for that. I'm also ready to get out of bed now. I'm glad we spoke. And let me go and drink a jug of warm water and start my day. Let me know if you've read this book, listened to it, and any other Real Housewives or any other memoirs that you can recommend, or anything at all. Let's exchange ideas and see how we can enrich each other in more ways than one. Thank you, guys.